What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, this is TW Motorsports, and today we are back on the white Trans Am with the underhood cleanup. So in the last video, you guys saw me get all the wiring tucked nicely underneath this inner fender here, and so I really like the look of that. I did off camera do a little. I just was testing some polish that I had on the top of this, and it looks a little better. I think we're gonna polish a few things. Or at least make them look a little nicer. So, but either way, we got that accomplished. So I want to continue, and we're going to go over to the passenger side today. So we also removed the air injection and the EGR in the last video. So that's out of the way, that piping that came down to the headers. And I disconnected it right here because I didn't have time in that video to take this pump out. So this goes down to a pump that's underneath the inner fender here. It's kind of underneath the front bumper liner, and so we're going to take that out today. We're going to do some more cleanup, try to get everything off the top of this fender, including the hood release. So you can see that's what this line is here. So the air pump is the big line, and then the hood release is the small line. So we want to do that. I want to get this ground off of here. You know, there was a ground on that one over there as well. I want to get this ground moved to somewhere else. And we're just going to continue the cleanup. So we'll see how far we get. I doubt we'll be able to get it all in this video, the whole thing, but maybe we will. I don't know. So let's get started by, actually the very first thing I want to do is I told you in the last video I was going to put this in, but this little vacuum canister or check canister for the vacuum line that goes right here. You can see it snapped off when I took it apart, and so I'm going to plug this in, and I'll list this in the description down below, guys. That's pretty easy to do. These things get really brittle as they get some age on them. Just make sure that you're going in the same way the other one came apart. So there should be this line that went into the inner fender goes on the top. There's one that comes in from the firewall that comes in to the middle. So that middle one, and then there's a line that comes up from the bottom, obviously that plugs in the bottom. So we're gonna plug that in real quick, but I won't show you guys that. I'll just snap that in. We're gonna get it off the ground. Obviously we need to take the wheel off, and we'll look and see what we need to take off. The liner should be very similar to the other side, but I'll show you guys once we get it up in the air and the wheel off. Now that we've got it off the ground with my new jack, guys, I'm loving this thing. We've got the same situation here. So we've got a 7mm there, one up top, and then one over here, and then you have two 10mm down here at the bottom, the very bottom here, and same thing, you've got the little plastic screws. They're actually, I think they're metal screws, but the insert's plastic. So we need to get all that out and get the inner fender liner completely out of the way. Now that we have that inner fender liner out, you can see everything, including the air pump that we need to take out. So this air pump, it has a couple plugs on it that we need to unplug, obviously. There's another one back here in the back. And then there's a few vacuum lines, which I don't know if I think they're all self-contained with this little pump here. But either way, we need to take this out. There's a couple ways you can do it. I generally like to take the whole bracket out. So this whole thing, you can see, is held with little isolators with 10mm. There's 4 of them, one in each corner. So we need to go ahead and get that out. Once we get that loose, the factory put a little spot here to pull out that pump or access it. There's a little flap right here that you can see. And if you wanted to, you could come out that way, but since we have the inner fender liner out, we should be able to just come out this direction. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these 10s out. And it's kind of a pain to reach them. If you can't get a ratcheting wrench back there, you may have to undo this flap and use a long extension to get to the 10s on the other side, which may be what I do. But let's get this thing out of the way. Like I said, that will drag this line, this big thick line out. I need to cut this zip tie as well, and it'll pull straight down and out of the car. You can see that I did have to undo this little flap and take it out that way. I didn't take it out that way, but I had to use that flap to get to the 10mm. I couldn't reach back there. But once we got that out, there's a couple cleanups I'm gonna do right here. It looks like this has been replaced before, which is pretty common on these cars. For the lights kind of hold water, so the sockets burn out. So this one's obviously had a replacement at some point. But this is the air pump. And guys, look, you can't just remove this without deleting it from the tune, which I'll show you eventually. once we're all finished up cleaning. But if you unplug this, you're going to get a service engine light because it's not seeing that plugged in. So you can leave it in there if you want to, and just, you know, take the piping off of it and keep it plugged in. I don't necessarily think you'll get an error if you do that. But I want it out of the car. Look, it's not going to be used. Take some weight off. I don't know how much this thing weighs. It's pretty heavy. I'd say probably, I don't know, 5 pounds maybe. But either way, we got it out of the way. And so now what I want to do is, and I don't understand why GM didn't do this, but I want to run my hood release underneath. So in order to do that, we're obviously going to have to unhook it here and thread it back, and we're going to have to drill a hole similar to what we did over there, but obviously not as big because it's a smaller line. I want to put it like somewhere, I'm thinking right here, so it's a nice easy transition. That's what I did on the red car. And so what we need to do in order to make that happen is we need to unhook this, and I'll show you. I'll get a light down in here and show you here in just a second. But I want to hook something to it so we kind of take the same path. So I'm going to hook maybe an extra wire to it, so when we're pulling it out, we have the same path back, aside from obviously going under the fender. So either way, let's get this unhooked. There's a little clip on the bottom here. Get this pushed out. If I can, well, a little stronger than I thought it was. So that's out. And then you can see it kind of goes underneath and then threads to the middle. So we'll, I'll get a line tape to it, and then we'll get the light over there and show you guys kind of how to unhook that. So in order to undo this thing, it's not too bad. So you've got, similar to like any other clip, it's got a retaining clip that holds it in this little arm here. And we need to get that loose. I may have to grab a set of pliers. I may not be able to do this with one hand. Generally I can do it with my fingers. Oh, I got it. Okay, so you can see we pull that out, and then we've got the little end on it. You can see the clips. All right, so now what I need to do is I'm going to tape a wire to this, because a lot of times it's kind of tough to get it back in the same track. So we're going to tape something to it, a thicker wire. That way when we're pulling it through, we can at least keep the pathway the same. Now, if you don't have anything, you can generally sneak it up through there. You want to stay out of the light mechanism, because obviously the light open and closes. You don't want it closing on it. The other thing is you want to stay away from any moving parts. So I'm going to tape a line to it. We're going to pull it gradually through. I still can see it down here in the corner, and I'll show you guys here in a minute, but let's drag this thing out and get it at least up to this point, and then we'll talk about where we're going to drill that hole. So you can see I've got it pulled out. So I've got my little tracer wire stuck right there. And so what I want to do is I want to drill right below this, see the bolt that goes in the fender here for the hood hinge. Right below that, you can see there's an area where it's kind of recessed. Basically, I want to drill from the back side right here. And we need to get it big enough for this end to go through. Now this is a shielded cable, but I'm still going to put a grommet in here. So what I'm planning on doing is drilling it big enough to put a grommet, and so I'll drill a pilot hole, and then we'll use our stepped drill bit to get as big as I need to use these grommets here. So I obviously don't want it chafing up against the metal of the car. So similar to what we did on the other side, we need to put something in place. So I'm going to drill it at least that big, and that should be big enough to get our cable through, as well as the end of it, the head on it. And so yeah, let's get to drilling. Well, something I completely forgot is that I smoked that drill when I did the last video, and so I had to pick up a new one. This one is way more stout, and it came with a deal where you get an extra DeWalt tool. So I got the circular saw. I have pretty much everything else. So I also got an extra charger and 2 extra batteries, which is kind of cool. But this one is way more stout. So now we can go ahead and drill that. I completely forgot, and I went to grab my drill and I thought, oh, this one is bad. Like if you turn it on, it starts to smoke, and you can hear stuff in there going bad. I've had that thing for probably 2-3 years now. So, and this one is way more stout. It's meant to use these new batteries, but I'm gonna drill a pilot hole with this guy. I've got this to get us a spot to drill, and then we're going to drill a 3/4 inch hole for the grommet that I'm actually using. So hopefully you guys can see I drilled it right here, and I've got the pilot hole drilled anyway, right above actually where one of your 7mm attaches the inner fender liner. So this next stepped up area right here. So now I'm going to grab 3/4 inch step drill bit, and we're going to make this hole quite a bit bigger, and then we should be able to get our line and grommet through. Now we've got a pretty good size hole drilled here, and I went ahead and put the grommet, I just pushed it on the line here so you can see it, and we're just going to thread this thing through. I'm going to clean this area up really well and clean this line off. I cleaned most of this when I did the wiper motor, but I'll just, you know, go over a couple sections here to make it kind of cleaner, and then we'll push it through, and then all we got to do, guys, is use our tracer wire to pull it back through. You know, we'll be able to see it down here in the bottom of the fender, but yeah, let's get that thing pushed in there. I've got it pulled through with my tracer wire here. You can see we're back where we need to go, taking the same path that we took when we originally took it out. So what we'll do is we'll tuck this up in there, and it looks really nice, guys. Looks like it was made that way, with the grommet in place, and now we don't have any of that ugly stuff on top of the inner fender liner. So let's go ahead, get this thing hooked back up, and then, you know, unlike the other side, I told you guys I wasn't going to clean, you know, the inner fender liner. I think I may do that. I may scrub under here, and if I do, I will show you guys. There's one other thing I want to take off, and that is this ground, this ugly ground that you see right here. I want to take that off as well. So we're going to grab something to keep that still on the bottom while we take it out of place, and we're going to re-ground it somewhere else. But I think I am going to probably do a little bit of cleaning down here. We're going to have to find a new home for this now. And what I'm thinking is I'm going to run it underneath here, and then I'm going to ground to the ABS block. And the reason why, guys, is this guy actually grounds, I mean, it bolts to the side of the frame. So you should be able to take this 13 off, and I might scuff it up a little bit, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to remount it here. And like I said, I'll probably do a little scuffing on it and put this little star washer underneath it. But that'll give us a spot to access this, and it not be up here looking all ugly on the top side of the fender. There's a couple reasons why I should have done this on the other side. For one, and really the biggest reason, is there's always a lot of dirt that builds up around these vents here on the side. Sorry if you can't see them there. So you have access to unclip them and get that clean and clean the vent. And so I should have done that on the other side. I'll probably go back and do it off camera. I don't know, I may show you guys, but you know, getting those out to get them clean makes it way easier on you. The other thing is I cleaned a lot of the mud off, and you still have some specks here. So what that is, I'm using some Stoner tar and sap remover. That's tar, just road tar, and it really shows up a lot on white cars. And so I'm gonna take my time and kind of knock this down. We're really gonna have to kind of gum it on, let it set for a minute. Generally I would spray this, but I don't want it on everything else. So we'll let this set. I'll kind of get a bunch on there, and you'll see it generally starts to run. This stuff's pretty good for taking stuff like that off. But we're gonna get this area cleaned up, and then we can move on to the inner fenders. Holy cow, there's a lot. More tar than I thought there was. It was really muddy here. I don't know if they had gone off-roading in this thing or what, but just doing this stuff like this makes a huge difference. And then I will use a brush to clean out the vent areas and the vents. Okay guys, so I know we're getting way off the beaten path here, but I've been dying to put this on and show you guys. I got the closeout panel for this guy, and I just want to put it on. So since I'm cleaning, I got this cleaning stuff out. We're gonna go ahead, clean this area up and install that. I've been dying, I've had it I bought it literally the day I bought the car because I cannot stand not having that on the front. And so we're gonna clean this up a little bit, and then we're gonna get that Trans Am, the Firebird or the Phoenix installed on here to make it look nice. I was really wanting to clean this thing, but there's a lot of spidering in the front bumper. It really could use a respray, but that's why I'm being kind of aggressive. Normally I wouldn't clean it this way, but I'm gonna use some of my compound just by hand and kind of knock out this area. So some M105 to kind of shine it up. And then we'll get all the bugs and junk out of here and then grab that panel that I'm so excited to put in. This is what I'm talking about. So it's a little off as far as color goes, but should snap in place. And we need to find a couple screws to get it threaded in. But guys, I cannot stand, I don't care. Missouri's a state where you have to run 2 plates. Give me the ticket. I just love the look of this. I think it just looks ridiculous without it. So we're gonna grab a couple small screws. It doesn't take much. You can see we don't have a ton of area, and you've really gotta have a pretty small head on the screw. And I think I've got some here. So let's get this thing slid in. Now I will tell you, this is not a factory GM piece. Those are long gone. But sometimes you can find a wrecked one, or this is a company, I bought it off of eBay. And while I'm not like super impressed with it, it's something, you know. I couldn't find a used one. I think I'm gonna have to get a bigger screw. That one is not doing it. You need something obviously big enough to hold it in the hole, but small enough for the head to fit. And that one is just not quite big enough. Although it feels like it should be. I got it in there. All right, now we can go back to our regularly scheduled program here. I just wanted to make sure my gaps were good, and they are. It's not like a real uniform fit, but definitely cleans up the front of these things, makes it look a lot nicer. Now I know I didn't show you guys any of this, but all I did was just use some super clean and my little toothbrush, and I just went over this one time. It doesn't have to be great. I just thought, since I'm here and since I took these vents out, I might as well, try to clean some of that. So we've got all that clean, and I probably should have showed you guys that, I know. But on to the next thing, and that is I've got the vents all cleaned up here, but because obviously when I do the paint correction on this, I'm not gonna be able to get the buffer in here. I'm gonna grab some of my M105, and I'm just gonna, by hand, get this area right here, this little strip, and then below. And obviously I'll be able to get my buffer in these areas around the outside of that. But before I snap those vents back in, I wanna try to clean up some of my brush marks that I probably made marring the paint. It's not gonna be perfect, but you're also not gonna get a ton of shine here as far as like sunlight and whatnot. So just going over it one time. So let's do that real quick, and then we'll get our vents back in. Now that we got that done, we can go ahead and snap these guys back in. They only go in one way, so. Uh-oh, that one's broken. That's not good. Well, maybe it's not broken, it's just, oh no, it's broken. Dadgummit. Yep, it's broken, it's not gonna stay in. I think I actually have an extra one of these somewhere, but I may just put some, glue on this. It's definitely broken. All right, well, that's how it goes. I'm gonna go see if I've got an extra one. I'm pretty sure that I do. If not, then we'll have to glue this one or source another one. The other area I wanna go over is like this area right here, because we've got all the tar off of it, but I think we can take some of the staining out that you see. Maybe not, but we'll try. Just a lot of times you get stains. Like, yeah, I just took a bunch out right there. Probably getting a little more in depth than I need to, guys. I know we're a long way from the under hood cleaning that I was saying we were gonna do. We'll get back to it though. Yeah, that's looking better. So once we go over this at least one time, then we'll move over to the inner fender liner. We'll get it all cleaned up, and then we should be able to get it in. The good thing about that vent is you can put it in afterwards. We don't have to have the inner fender out to put it in. So now I know we're jumping around, but I want to get this off here. I see it every time I come out. It's just like a little scuff on the gas lid, and I think it'll just scrub right out, but we'll see here. Maybe a little deeper than I thought. Looks like it may be coming off a little bit. I don't know, I just had this stuff out here, so same M105. That may take a machine to get that off. We've got some of it out here. Just seems like this car has a lot of scuffs all over it, you know, just random spots. This one and the one on there was one on the fender that I didn't show you guys, but I took it off too. Those are really annoying to me because like this one stuck out big time. I guess I want to paint correct this thing so bad. But, all right, I promise we'll get back to what we were doing. We'll go get the fender well clean, or the inner fender insert clean. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? I mean, you don't technically have to have a buffer to get these things clean, but man, that would take a long time where the buffer would have done that, you know, immediately. Gas door's kind of bent. Nice. Now for this thing, probably gonna make a mess. Just using some super clean. About time for a refill. I'm just gonna wipe it down once with that. And you're gonna have some big chunks like this here. I don't even know what that is. So we'll wipe it down, and then we are gonna go get a scraper, and we'll scrape those areas like that, you know, have some big chunks of, I'm guessing, tar, the way it sticks to it. The downside to this is that you get your floor messy, but it's a little too chilly to do it outside today. So as far as scraping it, I'm just using, I've got a plastic one and then I've got a metal one. I'll probably use the, I don't know, I may use both, but kind of what I'm doing here is I'm just going along and knocking off the big stuff, you know? So what I may do is go over it with the plastic one, kind of in different directions, and then maybe with the metal one after that. See those big chunks like that? It just kind of helps knock the big stuff off. And then once I get finished with that, I've got a drill brush out here. We're gonna try to go over it with the drill brush as well. So I'm not really sure where I left off in this video because this has been over the course of a week and a couple days probably. But I know I painted the inner fender liners. They are over there. I did put the wheels back on. I haven't put the fender liners in yet. I will show you guys when I do that. But I'm wanting to start cleaning under the hood, and I'm going to be using my steam cleaner. Now look guys, I know you guys are not gonna wanna go out, and maybe you are, but those are about 1,500 bucks now. And while they do an incredible job with heat, steam, and pressure, they are very expensive. So you can do this with a brush and a lot of microfibers. Is it harder? Yes. Honestly, an easier way to do it would be with some cleaner, like what I'm going to be using, the Super Clean, and I am mixing it about 75% water, distilled water, and 25% Super Clean, if you guys are wondering. Somebody asked that in the last video. But you could do it with a brush, some of this, and a compressor. That would be good as well, because you've got that pressure of the compressor to blow stuff out. But the steam cleaner does work a little better. I'm going for the easy route, and it also helps with grease and whatnot. Although you could do it with, you know, other ways. Now my normal method of doing without the steam cleaner would probably be to start tearing stuff apart like we did on that. Why I didn't use the steam cleaner there, I don't know. But anyway, I'm gonna try to set you guys up on the tripod where you can see. I've got my light up here. I will tell you that once it starts steaming up, you know, I may cut it off and then just show you guys maybe a section after I'm finished. But either way, let's get started. So here we go, guys. I'm going to, like I said, probably have to show you maybe before and afters, but I'll start maybe right here on this area, and the battery is unplugged. I'm just gonna kind of douse this down with a little bit of cleaner here. And we're gonna go blow away here. So hopefully all of it goes down. Look, we're gonna blast stuff. It's gonna hit us in the face and pop all over the place. So I got that covered. But we're gonna give it a try. So you guys saw it before. Now take a look, just a couple minutes here. It's absolutely insane how well this does. You know, the downside is it's getting to the point where I can't see either, you know, so I'm basically doing it blind. You don't want to hold up against, you know, a bunch of stuff for a long time and burn it up, especially your wiring and whatnot. But there's still going to be some wiping involved, you know, because you're blasting stuff all over the place. Now, as it starts to get cleaner, obviously you'll blast less stuff. So, but anyway, you get the idea of what's going on. Look at the head there, the top of the head, and you know, the grease that was on the top of the valve cover. It's looking better. You know, like I said, I'm not going for perfection here. Otherwise I'd be taking all this stuff apart. I think still that's a better way to clean it because, you know, there's less in your way. But either way, we're going to continue. Like I said, I'll try to cut in from time to time and show you guys what it looks like. So I've got about as far back as I can get. It's not perfect. In fact, it makes me crazy that it's not perfect. You guys know how I am. But the only way to do it well is to take stuff apart. It's just getting to the point where, like, I can't reach the coil packs in the back. I may end up taking those off if it drives me that crazy. I don't know. We'll just kind of see where this goes. But I'm going to kind of go up to, you know, like the area right here, see if we can get some of this knocked down. Got all the areas that I think, look, that are going to clean up. Could I do better? Yeah, I could spend a ton of time here, but it looks better. And so ultimately that's what I wanted. I think, guys, if I keep this car long enough and do any mods to it, one of the very first thing I will do is a LS6 intake. So if I do an LS6 intake, I'm going to have all this junk out of there. If I ever do heads cam, I'm not going to go back with these heads because they're the perimeter bolt because it's a 98. And so I'll be able to get all that cleaned if I do that. But for now, I'm just going to live with what I've got. It does look way better than what it did. So I'm going to move on to a couple other things. So I told you I was going to do some performance stuff, and I've got a new lid, which I'm going to go grab. So what I'm going to do is we're going to unplug these guys here, and then I'm going to grab a flat blade screwdriver, and we're going to get this guy off and get this out of the way. And I know that I'll be cleaning some stuff, you know, as I remove and move, and basically everything's cleaning with me. Oh, I need to pull these little plastic clips. Now we can get this out of the way. I'd say it's been on there a minute. That is insane, guys. I've never had one that stuck. And you can see why I left that. I didn't want to blow a bunch of stuff in the engine while we were cleaning. So I've got enough junk kind of strung out everywhere in here. I noticed a couple lines here have been replaced too. The person I bought this from actually worked at a GM dealer, and so I think they had, you know, stuff done to it as it was needed. I'm going to replace the filter as well. But let's get these 10 millimeters out. Maybe we can clean up this area a little bit more. I'm going to guess it's going to be a mess under here. Gross. Yeah, it's not as bad as I thought. stuff like this, I'll just clean with the rag and some cleaner here. Not too bad. Sounds kind of sandy. I'm gonna pull this sticker off too because that looks ridiculous. I'm gonna wipe the top side of the fans. I might actually grab my vacuum because there's a bunch of dust in the top there. Now that we have that vacuumed off, and we'll talk about the plate or the bottom here that I took off, but what I did was I also filed the top off of these the first ones closest in, because I'm gonna move these grounds. I hate the way they mount these grounds, and so it's just a 10mm, and it may be a little tricky trying to get the bolt started, just making sure they go in, but I wanted to knock the paint off that so we got a good ground. I've done this in the past, guys. No issues whatsoever. All the grounds that I've moved so far, nothing has happened, but you can see how much nicer that's gonna look hidden down below, and you can see it mounts on the same type here. So I'll probably put these bolts back in just so we don't have an ugly open hole, and maybe down the road we'll clean up some of the bolts and stuff under the hood, but just trying to make it look a little nicer. The other thing though is there's this thing called the free a.i.r mod. And so essentially what it is, I'm gonna show you because I got another one. I actually took the one out of my red Trans Am. The free a.i.r mod, so this is out of the red Trans Am, I figured we'd just use it, is you cut this open here. So normally it's closed out here, and this supposedly feeds more air, lets the engine get more air. I don't know whether it does or not, guys, but I'm gonna keep it. I'm not gonna do that to the other one because I didn't want to clean it. This one was already somewhat clean because the Trans Am generally stays pretty clean, but essentially you can see that it opens up a big section that would normally be closed off here for the air intake. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to get the bolts started back in this underneath and getting these lined up at the same time. And we'll go ahead and cinch this guy down. Tighten those down, you wanna reach back behind and make sure those wires aren't loose, and they're not. It actually cinched it down. And then we need to put our little tray back in that holds our filter. And so your cut, if you make this cut, guys, only needs to be, basically you can outline the filter tray because it won't do you any good to go any further than that. So we've got that. I'm gonna clean off just kind of around these areas right here. We'll go ahead and put those tins back in, and then we'll move on to the lid that I got and a couple other things. So I got an SLP lid. This guy is gonna set here. It's gonna take basically away all of that junk that we had before. So all the big air silencers, that's to keep the kind of air quiet. There is a seal that you're supposed to put on the back here. I am gonna put that in. It just kind of seals the back side of this off. It goes on the bottom. But we got a couple clamps here. We also opted to get this guy. So what this does is it's a smoother bellow instead of that accordion. Now look, they say this makes like 5 horsepower. I don't know if I buy that. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it looks a little nicer and it's easier to clean. So that's what we're gonna do. But before I do that, I also have to move our IAT sensor that goes here. That's why you've got that pre-cut hole. And then it did come with a plug, which I'll list this stuff in the description, but it came with a plug because we're not gonna be using our air injection. If you're using air injection, your air injection would go in here. But we do need to swap over our IAT sensor. We also need to swap our mass airflow sensor. So I'm gonna clean those up off camera, get them installed on this thing, and then we'll try to put it together. I will tell you guys, it's kind of a pain to get the IAT sensor out. Just be careful. What the easiest way to do is you need to pull on this side and push on the other side, get the sensor out, and then you can pull the grommet out. Once you get that out, then you can go ahead and move it over to the new lid like that. Put the grommet in first, and then you're just gonna kind of spin this guy back and forth, getting it into place. But that is kind of tough, I will tell you guys. The other part is the mass airflow sensor. It's a tough fit in here as well. So same thing, you're gonna have to kind of pry around on it and get it out of the old, but I still gotta clean it up, and then we'll push it into this. Once you get the mass airflow sensor in, guys, what I did was I used my heat gun and heated this plastic up because it doesn't go in really easy. You need to make sure your flow is going the correct way, so out of the box towards the engine. But we've got that in there. I used the factory clamp to clamp it down. And now we've got this clamp, which you can see the cutaway for the mass airflow sensor right there, so we need to clamp it down. And then obviously we need to clamp it down on the throttle body. I will tell you guys, just from experience, it is easier to clamp it down on the throttle body than it is to clamp it down like all at once. So we're gonna try it both ways. I'm gonna go ahead and put a clamp on here, and I'm also gonna put that strip, remember, across the bottom to help seal this off. But we're gonna go ahead and put the clamp on this section, and then we'll see if we can get it over the throttle body. If not, we may have to take it back apart. Now, normally I would show you guys me putting a filter in right now before I put this on, but I don't have it yet. And I'm just using a factory one anyway, nothing fancy. So we've got that on, and then like I said, sometimes it's a little bit of a hassle to get it over the throttle body. Holy cow, it totally made a liar of me. So it went right on. So now all we have to do is make sure that the back of this is seated where it needs to go, which is a little tougher with that piece in place because it doesn't condense as much as the other one. But you should be able to get it with a little bit of moving back and forth. We need to get it over the lip in the front is what we need to do. So we've got it there. We got it here. Now we don't quite have it. Golly, I may have to trim. I may actually have to trim a little bit off that. Or just get it to go back just a hair further, I think is what I'll have to do. I think the 5th time's the charm here. I had to trim out these sections that go a little further over the throttle body. But I think, guys, we've got it now. And like I said, I gotta pull it back apart anyway to put the filter in, but figured we'd go ahead and put it on here. There we go. It goes way further back now, which gets these into the channels they're supposed to go in. And you really, like I said, you need this front lip over like that. Man, it's not the greatest fit, that's for sure. And unless you get the front ledge of this on top, it's not gonna, these clamps won't seal right. There we go. Now we're in place. Once that's over the top, see how those clamp down and stay. So now we just need to tighten this clamp up. I tried to move it to where it was the best looking, but it doesn't really matter as long as you're clamping down the throttle body. So we're finished with that. Like I said, I'm just putting a stock filter in it, so I'm not going to show you guys that. There's not a ton of gain to be had with an aftermarket filter on these anyway. We can go ahead and plug that stuff in too. But now we need to move on to, remember I said the battery mount here was non-existent, it's broken. Well, because of the turbo kit on my red Trans Am, we actually have to cut that up anyway. So I've got a good one. I'm just gonna replace it real quick. So we'll get this old coolant container out of the way. The first thing you need to do is take the battery out. And then guys, all there is one 13 millimeter holding this thing. Man, it's gross. I'm gonna clean some of this down here. I'll show you guys here in a minute once I get this out, but let's take this 13 out and get this thing out of place. The other thing, you will have to have a pair of pliers to get the line. There's a line that goes from it up to the top of the radiator. So we'll grab it as well. Let's see if we can get this out. That's what I was afraid of. It's rusted in place. I don't want to bust it. Let's see if we can knock it loose just by hand. That's not real strong. That's why I didn't use my other one. You can hear that. Let's see if it'll come out now. It may snap off. No, it didn't. Well, I don't think it snapped. Doesn't look like it. So let's grab this thing off here. May get a little coolant here. Let's see if we can get this thing out of place. Oh, it's gross. Perfect. So that's what I'm talking about. We have to use this section from here up on the turbo Trans Am, but for here, look at this. Look how bad that line is. Chances are it was gonna leak anyway. Now I've seen way worse, but you can see that's pretty gross. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up real quick. I'm just gonna spray some stuff down in there. I don't really have a way to show you guys, but we'll clean that area up and then we'll go grab the other panel. So I cleaned that up somewhat. Well, it's not, you know, not all of those stains will come out. But I've got the new piece here, and what was broken is this leading edge, and that's what grabs the battery on the front side, and then that little piece connects it on the back side. So we're gonna go ahead and get this back in place. And just like you did on the other one, you gotta move some wiring loom out of the way. But it should set in there nice. There we go. And then of course we need to hook up our coolant line back to where it was at. And get my pliers here. And then I'm gonna clean up the bolt a little bit that held this thing together. Just to, I mean, it's gonna be under the battery, but it's pretty rusty. So I wanna clean out the threads and just make it look a little nicer. So we got the battery back in. I don't have it hooked up yet. Chances are I'm gonna have to replace it anyway, but I did wipe it off. I did clean it, even though I think it's going bad on me. It doesn't seem to want to hold a charge. But either way, guys, I think we're gonna be finished for this video. If you're wondering, like, what about the inner fender liners that are sitting over there drying? They're obviously dry, but I'm gonna keep going on this detailing video. And so we're gonna move on to the door jambs, I think, in the next video. And so because of that, we're gonna be blowing stuff back in, and I don't want to have that on the back side of those all cleaned up fender wells. And it'll give me the ability to clean out, you know, kind of back there. But you'll see that in the next video. But all in all, I think we have improved the looks of things. Obviously with the lid on there, that cleans up so much instead of this big ugly thing. You can also see that we've got some springs and struts. More to come on that in future videos. But for now, I think it's as clean as I'm gonna mess with under the hood. It looks way better than what it did. Without tearing it completely apart and getting into like another Trans Am situation like this. That is how that started. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to drive this thing. I wanted to clean it up a little bit, make it look a little nicer, upgrade a few things, fix a few things. And so we did get that accomplished. So like I said, if you guys are enjoying this, please, like always, smash that thumbs up button. Guys, if you are not subscribed, please go down there, hit that subscribe button. Of course, ring the bell icon. That notifies you every single time we drop a new video. And stay tuned to see this thing clean up.